Welcome to the QCA Wrestle Podcast with Rob Hill and Jay Zyman. Our guest today is Jake Larsen. Thanks for joining us and enjoy the show. We're here today with Pleasant Valley head coach Jake Larsen. Jake was a Division III national champion at Crosse, Wisconsin, where he was also a three-time All-American. After college, he coached for 6 seasons at Sparta High School in western Wisconsin. And for the last few years has been at Pleasant Valley High School here in the Quad Cities. We're happy to have you on, Jake. Thanks very much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
First thing, I've said this a couple times now. I think we're getting close to being able to stop talking about this, I hope. But weird time in our world with COVID-19 and everything going on. Summer break probably started a little early for you, for all of us this year. But how have you been managing your time these days?
Well, a lot of just hanging out with my own 2 kids and getting house projects done. With wrestling, you know how it is. It's you can do only so much by yourself, so you need to get, partners and people together. We're not able to do that, so it's just been, interesting. And then we were told, technically, like contact hours, you can't really send a bunch of virtual videos out, and you can't do a lot of that stuff. So it was just. It has been strange, out of the norm. I went down to Florida for spring break to visit some friends of mine with my kids. And then, we're down there. Next thing you know, it's, we're not going to come back for a couple of weeks. And it was another couple of weeks. It just kept going. And next thing you know, we're doing online schooling. And then here we are. And it's been crazy. The whole thing and not being able to go back to the classroom and see all the kids that you're with, and your wrestlers and just everything, your colleagues. It's been weird. But I will say the interesting thing about all this is you get to spend more time with your family, right? That's how it used to be. Years ago, people weren't so busy, so that part actually has been pretty cool. Try to take a positive from it, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
That's the way to do it. Hey, with Jake, you're starting wrestling. You're not originally from the Quad City area. Can you give us a little back history of where you're originally from and how did you get your start in wrestling?
Yeah. So I'm born in River Falls, Wisconsin. So that's just, a lot of people know Hudson. That's just right outside the Twin Cities. Moved around quite a bit when I was younger. And then we ended up back in River Falls in my, later elementary years, like 5th grade. And wrestling, I didn't get involved with wrestling until actually 7th grade at the junior high in River Falls. Wrestled there for a year. And then we moved up to Turtle Lake in northern Wisconsin. And I don't know if you guys know Kevin and Tony Black and Dave Black. They're from Wisconsin. Pretty big names in the wrestling community. And Kevin was a couple years older than me, but Tony was more my age, and it kind of got me involved with wrestling. So I kind of hung out with them quite a bit when I was younger. Just started going to camps and get involved with wrestling. And, so I only had, going into high school, I only had 2 junior high seasons of experience outside of doing out of season tournaments and things that you could do. But, I graduated high school in 2000. So back then the clubs and things that are opportunities now didn't really exist a whole lot. So, we had to kind of make our own, work out with partners and do everything with that. So my experience in wrestling up until, getting into high school was very minimal, actually. I didn't know much about it. It was a sport for me. I'm pretty, feisty and like to compete, and, hate to lose, but it feels good to win. And you guys have all wrestled. So it's just one of those, exactly what I'm talking about, that feeling. And I just got a hold of it and I loved it and just ran with it.
Would you say the sport came easy to you at first, or was it like a natural progression, or?
I don't remember, like I couldn't tell you my win-losses or anything like that, but I just remember not struggling. Like I didn't feel frustrated. Like I didn't feel, it was something with me, like I felt which most wrestlers do. Like the more you put in it, the more you get out of it. So I just felt if I kept working harder and the more I tried to learn, the more reps I did and everything I tried to do, I was going to get better. And, and I just, for me, it was, I think with my childhood and the way I grew up, just kind of grew up in an old school household. And I just think it was being a combative sport, it played well with me. It was something that that part of it came natural. I mean, my technique, I don't think I had great technique at all, but it was more like just a brawler, and that part worked well for me. Like that, sometimes you just got to want it more than the other guy, and you can be successful. And I think that's the part that was easy for me.
Sure.
Hey, Coach, growing up, you said it was a little different, back then, but who did you emulate, or who were different style wrestlers that you would develop your style after eventually?
Oh boy. I struggled with probably an identity and a style of wrestling. I kind of, when I was in high school, my coach, who was, great coach, great guy. I started probably when I moved up north started watching, and you guys remember VCR tapes, right? Mm-hmm. So my coach at that time, he had all the like highlight video tapes from the 92 and 96 Olympic Games. And I just absolutely watched them over and over again. So like kids now, they could go and watch wrestling on YouTube. So that was my YouTube at that time. I just watched wrestling videos, and any camp that he went to that I wasn't able to make it to, he would film, and then I would just get the tape and I just watched it. And then I would go back and practice it. So a lot of it was kind of a self-taught. And I'm a visual learner anyway. So like I can just watch it and then I can go and do it. Now, obviously mastery of the technique, it takes time, but that's really what I did is I just watched, that era of wrestling and put it to practice. And I somehow, like my style and what I did in high school, I kind of like an outside low single, which is odd because I'm not quick, but that's what I did. And I got away with it. And, I had some good success in high school. And then when I went on to college, that's where things completely changed for me. And if you watch the match from high school versus my college, it doesn't even look like the same person. So I think I'm assuming my love for the sport and everything, but just, I was still new enough that I didn't have anything really established. We've all seen those wrestlers throughout youth, junior, high level, high school, and college, that sometimes they've already peaked, and they just never really anything changed. And I never peaked until college. I was kind of one of those lucky ones where I was able to still grow and learn and improve. And that's not for everybody, but that's kind of how it went. But as far as like, a name, I mean, John Smith, obviously in high school is when I watched all that stuff. And then when I went on to the University of Minnesota, I started to establish more of my own style, because at that time, late, in the 2000s, early 2000s, with the team that they had there, it was a very heavy hand, snap down, very similar style as you've always seen with Iowa and the Brands brothers and everything. And that's kind of what I flocked to.
That makes sense. I was laughing at your comment, by the way, with watching video tapes of it. I hate to date myself, but when I was starting off, it was like these posters of still pictures, or you'd have to read the book. You'd be like, okay, how did you get from that spot to that spot? Because it was photos. That was all we had. We didn't even have video.
Yeah.
So.
Or reel to reel.
Yeah, real
8mm film.
It was chisel and great.
Yeah, I remember in high school there was some wrestling books in the library that I checked out, looked at those two, and would just kind of go back and play around with some different technique and whatnot. And it just. But yeah, I mean, that was the era that we learned in. It was just different.
So I mentioned in the intro, you had a super successful college career. 3-time All-American, national champion. Can you tell us a little bit about your college career and also how you selected your college, how that all went down?
Yeah. I remember high school, I had good grades. I was, AB honor roll, it wasn't great. My ACT wasn't fabulous by any means, but a true mentor in my life was John Peterson, Olympic John Peterson. So when I went to high school, he lived in Comstock, Wisconsin, was only 6 miles away. And his son, Josh Peterson, a couple years younger than me, was coming through in Cumberland. We were Turtle Lake, and they were kind of bounced back from. In Wisconsin, it goes Division 1, 2, and 3, and in most states it's 3A, 2A, 1A, or whatever. But they were a little bit bigger school than ours, so we were never really in the same division. They kind of bounced back and forth. But I remember my senior year. I mean, he helped me a lot. Like I would go over to his house, we'd break down film and whatnot. And, I just, at that time, Madison wasn't, I wanted to wrestle Division 1. I wanted to try it. And that wasn't really an option for me. And I went on a school visit randomly one day with John Peterson and met with Jay Robinson and, walked on at the University of Minnesota. And that's where I really feel, a lot of bumps in the road, but, I felt like I gained so much improvement over a course of my redshirt year. And, it didn't work out for me academically there. I didn't make a lot of good choices. And, I'm not going to hide behind it either, because that's sometimes freshmen do that. I was young and immature. And so who knows what my career would have been like had I stayed there. But, I planned on going back my sophomore year, which would have been, my redshirt freshman and freshman year. But I got in a bad motorcycle accident towards the end of the summer, and I got a plate put in my leg, and I couldn't do anything for like 6 months. I had road rash everywhere. I mean, it wasn't a good deal. Hitting a deer going like 80 on a motorcycle isn't fun. And so that kind of held me up, because it's like, what's the point now? I'll go pay student loans. I can't do anything. I can't train right now. So I actually took a year off of school. And I remember early on being recruited by Tim Fader at the time. He was at Lacrosse, and I still wanted to compete. I still wanted to go to school. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And so I just called him up and was like, hey, I'm interested in going down there. So I went to Lacrosse. I had to go to the tech school for a semester and then transferred into Lacrosse. And then that's where I finished my career, was Wisconsin Lacrosse. So there wasn't really a rhyme or reason why Lacrosse, as much as Fader kind of stood out, and we're good friends still today. I mean, he was a big part of my coaching career. I actually had 3 different college coaches at Lacrosse, with Fader and then Nate Score. He's been at Upper Iowa, but now he took a job. I just saw Denver, Chipotle, I think it is. Yeah. And then, Dave Malachik's been in Lacrosse ever since. And I've had awesome experience with all 3 of them. And, it was just interesting time. So Fader, though, he was the reason why I went to Lacrosse in the first place. So, and he's at Eau Claire now. So,
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Coach, you touched on it briefly, and you kind of walked right into our next question. Not a lot of people knew that you were in a really terrible motorcycle accident that you had mentioned with that deer. Can you talk a little bit about that, and maybe how, or if your wrestling background and, endurance helped you through that process to get back into wrestling, even? Because most people would have possibly just hung up the shoes and said that's a career,
Yeah. I felt like I was growing and getting so much better at Minnesota, and I knew at that point, like, it was probably like, it just wasn't, I wasn't going to finish my career there. And I just remember after the accident, I'm being laid up, and that was the time, 9/11 too. I remember sitting on a couch in a cast and like watching all that. It was just an interesting time in our nation's history. And I'm like, I don't want to be done. I still want to compete. But I was still a little skittish because, if you don't try, you never fail, right? So I could have used that as an excuse, or I could have done the other path, is which I took, is, learning, is coming through adversity. And that's what wrestling really is about, right? I mean, we always talk about that once you've wrestled, everything else in life is easy, and just that drive and that I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to hang this up. I'm going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep trying. And it's fine. The surgery and everything, like, really, I'm good. It's just if I get that area hit, like, it hurts. It still hurts. But it didn't really slow me down. I had to modify a couple things on, like, my starting stance in a referee's position. I can't move my ankle. I don't have the mobility like normally would have. But outside of that, like, it didn't really hinder me as far as training and practice. And I did that, and I was able to work my way through college. I did heavy highway road construction every summer since I was 18. And that was another thing that kind of why Minnesota or a Division I program was hard for me, is my parents didn't have money, and I didn't have any money, and I wasn't on any scholarships. So I had to work in the summers, and it was, if you're going to wrestle Division I, like, you got to be training, it's a full-time job. And I just wasn't able to do that. And in wrestling at Crosse, I was able to work and still go to school and do all that. So, I mean, I had a lot of stuff going on at the time. And I just think that the wrestling side of it is what helped me with that work ethic and that goal, setting a goal and being goal oriented. I think that's all the stuff that wrestling has taught us, whether it's youth, junior high, high school, college, everything. That's where all those experiences came into play. And it motivated me. I wanted to wrestle, and to do that, you got to go to school, right? So that's what I did. And I mean, like, you guys already mentioned, I was able to win a national title. I was All-American 3 times, and I was able to be an academic All-American as well. So, I experienced, we placed second as a team before, and third, I believe, fifth one year. I mean, I'd have to go back and look. We never won a title as a team. I wish we would have, but it was just all great experience. And I mean, like I just said, adversity for me is overcoming that stuff. That's a big word for me.
Sure. Jake, about the accident, I don't want to keep going back to it,
but it's okay.
I have to kind of get in my timeline in my head where everything's at. But first of all, were you conscious after the accident? And then what was your recovery time? I mean, how long? I mean, you showed me a scar once, and I about passed out looking at it.
Yeah.
So,
you passed out. I was conscious. Yeah, I hit the deer. I still remember today. I mean, I remember right now, I hit the deer, and I remember going down. I remember sliding on the pavement. I never hit my head. Actually, I didn't have a helmet on. I was just jeans and a sleeveless T-shirt. I just got done working on the road. And I got home and changed oil on the bike and just took it down the road and was coming back, and that's when I hit it. Sorry. And anyways, I did that, and I remember getting up and hobbling around. I was right next to our house, so they all came down and got me and called the ambulance. And honestly, I was, by then, your adrenaline's going. The worst pain, though, was all the mosquitoes. So I had all these open wounds on me, and I'm just getting eaten alive sitting on the side of the road waiting for the ambulance to come and get me. And then I spent a few days in the hospital, enough to heal and clean everything out. Because really, road rash is just basically second-degree burns is really what it comes down to, except a lot of dirt in them. So I had to get those scrubbed clean. That wasn't any fun. And then I ended up getting, because I shattered my, the fibia. There's the 2 bones on the right. I can't remember the smaller one. So that's where I had to get the plate in. And, the same doctor who put my plate in actually had to put a plate in my brother's arm. He shattered his elbow, broke his arm really bad. So we used the same doctor. And I tell you that pain that night when I got home was awful. Like, I don't know how many Vicodin I took, and it did not. I was up all night just in pain. It was I can't believe how bad that pain was. So I was laid up for, I feel like it was like 3 months where I was still kind of on crutches or in a boot and like couldn't do a whole lot. But I mean, my memory isn't very good on how long I was actually in a boot before I could move and do things normally. So kind of, yeah, put a damper on things for a while. That's for sure.
How did you transition from being an elite wrestler to becoming a high school coach?
I knew when I knew once I started wrestling back in college again, like I'm like, I think I want to get into coaching. Well, a good way to get into coaching is to get an education, and La Crosse is, is a big physical education school. So I that's just kind of where I jumped on it, and I knew I wanted to stay involved with the sport, and that's just a great way to do that. And also, I just think it's fun for me. Is coaching the kids, and I'm always telling the kids and parents like I've already created my story. Like this isn't about me anymore. I'm a coach. You want to win conference, you want to win a state champion. But we know at the end of the day, that's not what it's really about, and it's not going to define me as a coach or person. And I absolutely love coaching. I love watching the kids grow. I love taking a kid who's never wrestled before and watching to develop into a wrestler, but also a person, a young man or a woman, and just work hard at their life. And that to me, that's the rewards of it. And I wouldn't miss it for a thing. And I feel like my story, with not starting later, because that's the thing now, right? With sports, I mean, kids are starting earlier and everything, and they're getting extra attention and everything now, and it's just different than what it used to be. And now if it's hard to recruit for a sport like wrestling anyways, but when you get kids that haven't done it before, that's the first thing I tell them is like, you don't have to start early to enjoy the sport and have success. Like, I mean, you still can't say wrestling at 5 years old is better than wrestling at 13, because there's D1 national champs that never even wrestled until high school. So, I mean, it doesn't hold water. I mean, is it better? I mean, probably in some ways, but so that's a good recruiting tactic, and it's a good way to get kids out and involved, and you just tell them your stories and your experiences, and hopefully they kind of listen to you, or you can relate to you. So that's kind of, I mean, I can't say exactly 100% why, if it was one thing that made me want to coach, but as I reflect back on, that's kind of what I just wanted to stay involved. I still wanted to do it. And I don't know, like right now, this strange time, it's just kind of like, we haven't done anything for a while for wrestling, and can't wait for July 1st to get back in the room and whatnot. But that's kind of, that's kind of where I'm at right now with it.
So, Coach, after college, you went to coach over at Sparta High School. Is that correct?
Yep, I did 1 year as an assistant coach there, and 6 years as a head coach.
And I was able to scrounge around and find some articles on this, but very small school district, and you turned them into a super powerhouse in the wrestling program. Can you tell us how you did that and how you made that turnaround on them?
So I honestly, I think the turnaround was it was just a small enough community. So when I was there, it would be like a 2A size, smaller town, and a very blue collar community. We were 65% free and reduced lunch, which, at Pleasant Valley, we're like 7%, right? So it's just a little bit different dynamic. And I think for me, what obviously helped a lot was the support of the community, but also the support of the administration, because at the time, the principal who actually hired me, he was a volunteer coach, and his sons were coming through the program. So, and he coached before that as well. He was always involved with wrestling. He was actually a state champ in Wisconsin at, one time back in the day. Had definitely an interest in the program and the sport. And him and I were a lot alike on our ideas and what we wanted to do and how, growing the program. And we were both really big on recruiting, because we know wrestling is a sport with numbers. You got to have numbers. And So I starting off there as assistant coach, took over as head coach, and we were able to just continue to gain support of the community and grow the sport. And I mean, I eventually, I was shuffled around a little bit. Like I did some elementary school teaching, did some high school teaching. Eventually I ended up at the junior high, and in Wisconsin, at least in our area, the kids couldn't wrestle until, they were part of the youth program, but they couldn't wrestle junior high until seventh and eighth grade. And me being at the junior high, I was able to just recruit the crap out of everybody. So I just had a list of everybody, and I would just talk to them. I mean, there was a couple years there where we had like 75 kids out for our middle school team because, I mean, it was just easy. You couldn't recruit them because they couldn't. I said I got to go back. I don't think I have to edit it, but they could wrestle in sixth grade. So basketball was 7th and 8th grade. Wrestling was 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Sixth grade was also cross country and like track. So they really couldn't do a lot of activities in junior high. So I could just grab all those sixth graders and then bring them on through. And as far as, building the program up, I still worked road construction. So when I moved down here was when I really was the first time I actually put a lot of time in the summer with wrestling with the kids. I wasn't able to do that up in Wisconsin because my wage was quite a bit lower, and I still had to work to just kind of make ends meet. So I had to rely on other coaches and people helping. But I think the biggest thing is people just bought in. It was, I remember packed gyms and our rivalries, and it was a big deal. Wrestling was in our community. It was one of the only successful sports that was there. I mean, the football team, it was like 4 or 5 years there where they didn't even win a game. Basketball wasn't winning any games. I think cross country, boys made it to state. So that was kind of between them and wrestling. We were the only beacon of success that was going on in that community. And so, they kind of bought into the success, success breeds success. And we spent a lot of time in the weight room, And at that time in our area, there wasn't a lot of that going on. And we got up every morning at 6:30, and the wrestlers were lifting weights, and we invited other people into. It wasn't just the wrestlers, we had some just strong athletic kids, and they had a lot of grit to them, and it just took off. And right now, I still keep tabs on them a little bit and look back, and it's sad to kind of see they've kind of went down a little bit. But I think a lot of that, it's not me. It was just they didn't have at the time. Like I said, I was at the junior high, where it was a prime spot to recruit. They don't have that anymore. There's not as many teachers / coaches in the district that are able to recruit the kids, and we know if you don't have that, it's hard to maintain. So, I mean, the support of the community was what really drove that all, though. I mean, they were on board. I had a lot of people that wanted their kids out for wrestling.
That's a pretty cool. I see watching Jay and being, his son Keaton out at DeWitt Central, or is it Central DeWitt? Keaton corrected me earlier.
Yeah, we can.
There's definitely something to be said about that small town, support.
Yeah.
We love the city we live in, but I see the closer knit small towns, and that's a pretty cool environment they can bring to the table.
Yeah, and really it is. I mean, it really is. And again, I love this area. I love what we're doing here. I mean, it's great, but it is different. It is different, and if you've never experienced it, you don't really know, and it's kind of hard to explain sometimes too.
Sure. I think for us in Iowa, we can look as far as like Don Bosco or Lisbon. West Delaware is another one. Those small towns, they live and breathe wrestling, and it's pretty cool. Pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your adjustment from Wisconsin and the high school wrestling there to Iowa. And was there anything, were there any big differences between Wisconsin wrestling and Iowa wrestling, or how was that transition?
Oh yeah, it definitely was. It was definitely different. So when I came down here, I was content with being assistant coach. I didn't move here to be a head coach. I moved down here because it's well, my ex-wife now, but her family's down here, and my family's up in northern Wisconsin, and I've kind of always been on my own. I have great family support. I love my family, but it was just, I've always been kind of away, and it wasn't a big deal for me to be down here. And so a job opened up, and, that was at the time that, politically there was some interesting things going on in Wisconsin with education. And so I was like, hey, this job opened up, applied and got the job. And I was working on my master's at the time when I moved down here. So we were living in a basement, my ex-wife's aunt's basement. I wasn't even living in Bettendorf yet. I was driving from West Liberty, Iowa to Quad Cities every night or every day. So that was kind of interesting with coaching. I mean, leave about 5:30, 6 in the morning, and then not get back to about 7 at night. And what's interesting, I thought, with Iowa versus Wisconsin is definitely the skill level, I would say, is quite a bit higher here in Iowa. I mean, if you took all the state champs from Wisconsin versus Iowa, I mean, that I would think that I would put money on Iowa winning that. I noticed the like, here's a little thing with me, but the refs up in Wisconsin and track wrestling. So we were using track wrestling for several years. And when I just moved down here is when they just started to hey, we're in high school, we're going to use this now. So I've already been doing it and did it. And the officials up in Wisconsin, they're the ones that run the meetings. They're the ones that organize. They're the ones that do the weigh-ins. They're the ones that do that. The officials are the ones that took care of everything. So it was odd for me. I remember coming in for the first weigh-in down here, and it's still like this. And I mean, hopefully nobody listens to this and calls me out on it or whatever. But it is so unorganized, and it's just everyone's walking around everywhere and jumping on scales. Officials are not that. Sometimes they're by the scales, sometimes not. Sometimes just a random coach doing it. And that was odd for me. The officials up in Wisconsin are very, very structured. They're, like I said, they did everything. I mean, I would stand by the scale and write the weights down, but they're the ones doing it. Some tournaments are like that here, but a lot of tournaments are not. Weigh-ins for dual meets, they're kind of hit or miss on that. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. I mean, I'm not going to lie about it for my kids, and I haven't seen a coach try to, so it's honor system, whatever, that's fine. But it's just that wasn't like that up in Wisconsin. It's a lot different with that aspect. But it's interesting that I feel like there's still some archaic stuff. I don't understand why we're not using track wrestling in our junior highs. It's just flabbergasted me that we're not using it, that we're still bracketing old school matching weigh-ins. I just can't get beyond it. Every year I say something. When it was Coach Knight, or not Coach Knight, but Colin Wilkin, I would say something to him when we'd have our AD meetings. I would say something to Wade King when I first moved here. I'm why are we not using track wrestling? This is just, I'm sorry, but this is dumb. We have a computer program that literally does everything, but instead we're having the junior high coach sit down for hours on end, matching people up every time. I just don't understand it. And, it's one of those things where it's, then you got to get workers. You got to do this. It's every state's pretty much doing this. Why are we not doing this? You just teach them. It's not hard. People will do it. We're all educated. It's usually teachers who are working the tables anyways. It's not hard. So that's different to me. And I still hear people complain about, the track wrestling in the program and whatnot. The seating meetings were ran by the officials. So the seating meetings here, it's kind of a free for all a little bit. And I noticed I've been in several seatings meetings where the whole intent of track wrestling is it's pre-bracketed, pre-seeded, and blah, blah, blah. Some tournaments I go to, it's already done and they do a good job, and that's the intent. And if there's a discrepancy, you can bring it up. But there's still tournaments we go to and we'll be in the seating meetings forever. And I'm just I don't understand. I'm not going to fill out track wrestling then if we're going to come in here and have a meeting, because we're just doing the same thing over again. So that's a little, just again, interesting to me. And it's not good or bad. It's just, I don't understand. Whatever, it is what it is. But that's outside of that, obviously we're all on the same rule system for the most part. So that's not, It's not that. The coaches organization up in Wisconsin was very involved, very highly organized. It's good. I know the one here is good too. Just a little bit different, the coaches meeting and the structure of it, or I'm going to say the coaching clinic, I should say, not the coaching meeting, just a little bit different. What I like here is I feel that our college programs in the state are more involved, where in Wisconsin at the time, and I'm not digging Barry Davis, but at the time that I kind of was there, it wasn't as involved with the programs. It got better over the years. The smaller schools, your WEAC, we called them, or your UW system schools were pretty good involved with the state, the high school coaches, because you got to work together, right? Because you're a feeder system for their programs as well. So I like what the colleges do down here, though. I do like that. It's good.
So one of the things that I have a little bit of a unique perspective in that. So I'm from the Quad Cities my whole life, and then when my son, my oldest, is he's going to be a junior this upcoming year. When he was here in 7th grade, and my wife and I decided we were going to move, so we moved to Georgia. So he spent his 8th grade year and then like half of his freshman year in Georgia, and so I got to see how they do things. And so Georgia is actually, wrestling's massive in Georgia now. Team Georgia is actually performing really well at the national level. They won like cadet national duels a couple years ago. So their top level guys are like right there with Iowa, in my opinion. Now they're not as deep as Iowa. So like if you're say placed in Iowa against say like a 3rd to 8th, place down there, we're probably a little tougher up here. They're just not as deep yet. But one of the things they did really well, you talked about junior high. I don't like how we do our junior high sports here.
I don't either. I agree. Like, I mean, not even by bringing that up, like we don't have, why are there no tournaments? I remember we would bus and meet Saturday just like during their season, and all I've been told here, like we're not even, our junior high coaches can't even coach them outside of the little season that they have, and then they're only wrestling in this little area. I mean that's fine, but I mean we've been asking, like, why can't we go to Moline? Like, why can't we go here? Why are we? The kids get limited matches. They don't need to have 3 matches with Bettendorf, 3 matches with North Scott, and then you throw in a couple other kids in there and they wrestle the same kid over and over again. Like, I mean, I just don't understand that. I mean, we're Iowa, right? Iowa wrestling. Why is it like that? Why aren't we setting up tournaments? Why can't Bettendorf or PB host a junior high tournament and all the schools come to it? Like, I don't understand. We do our junior high duels, but we're told that our junior high coaches can't even coach them. So like I coach and help, and our club coaches do it. Like, why? Well, I don't understand that. Who made that rule, and what is actually the rule, and why are we having this rule? I don't understand it. Like, make me understand it. So I agree with you 100%. Yeah. It definitely could, and it wouldn't even need to be big changes. Like a couple things would make it so much better. Yeah. And I'm not even saying, because it's a small season, and Wisconsin was like that too. It was like, it's like 6 to 8 weeks or whatever, but they're only wrestling like once or twice, and we know how it is, once or twice a week. But we know how it is. If there's nobody at your weight, you don't even get a match anyways. Yeah. So we want to prepare them for high school. So we give them a 6 to 8 week season where they wrestle a couple times during the week, nothing on the weekends. So now some of these kids who are beginners, but maybe like they have no idea what a tournament is or how it is, and then they have to go on their own. It's just kind of, I don't know, it's just different to me. I'm assuming the experience in Georgia was a lot like that, where it was, I don't want to say more organized, but maybe that's what it is.
It was more, I would definitely say it was more organized. It was run much more like a high school season than how junior high is here. So they had actual duels where they had kids at weight classes, and they had, if there was wrestle offs needed, they'd have wrestle offs. You'd have to make the team, And they would, but then they would have exhibitions. So it's not like if you didn't make the team, there wasn't matches. It's just that they had their lineup like a high school team would. And then everyone else would get an exhibition at least every meet. And then every Saturday they would go to a tournament, and the middle school coaches would coach them at the tournament. It was great. I really, that's one thing Georgia, in my opinion, really does right in wrestling.
Yeah. I'm not trying to be negative about it. I just think there could be definitely some improvements.
Yeah. I think junior high sports is all about, I think the big, at least what I've always thought is it's about introducing, there's going to be some kids who've been wrestling for years already. That's great. They should be there to help the new kids as well. But it's about introducing kids to a new sport potentially. And I think we can do better at it. That's all. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I agree.
So, hey, Jake, you guys had a really good season this year, and I had a lot of fun on the sidelines watching you guys and watching these. You had a young team that you really developed, and you were going toe to toe with the best in the MAC, and had a strong season. I think Eli Lloyd was probably your trend center or your leader of the team. But can you talk to us a little bit about this season, good, the bad, some of the things that you've seen a lot of improvement and growth in the team?
Yeah, I think, for one was starting after last season, our participation with open match, especially during the summer, and then we went to team camp. We brought 28 kids. It just exploded. And, as well as I do, it's time on the mat's important and stuff, but there's also just that you kind of want to win a little bit more. You want to have more success when you put more into something. So it's your analogy of putting money in the bank, right? Like, keep putting money in the bank, and eventually you're gonna have to take a withdrawal. If you never put anything in, you're not gonna be able to take anything out. Then it means something to you. Think back when another story I tell the kids is I remember in 7th grade buying my first bike. Now, it was not a good bike, but I bought it. I put the time. I worked for it. I owned it, man. But it looked nice, and I took care of it. It's kind of the same thing when you put time into something to you then. Because, you got two wrestlers who are kind of even. The guy who puts more time in a lot of times is going to win that match because it means more to him. And so we had just a big influx of that. And my coaching staff, I gotta tip my hat to them guys, because they were, up and down from youth to our club coaches and everything, just put in a lot of time. We revamped a lot of, kind of made our system better, not necessarily the technique, but just a hierarchy of things with the coaches and with the kids, and how are we going to deal with grade issues or skipping practice and just little things like that, like where it made things mesh a lot better. And I didn't have to deal with a lot of that at Sparta because it sounds kind of cheeky, but everyone just listened, right? Well, if everyone just tells you, hey, don't miss practice, and they do it, well, I don't have to have a whole lot of little rules because everyone's there, right? Well, when you're building a program and trying to rekindle it, because PV was a powerhouse in the 90s, and even thereafter for a while, and it's not where it was then. But to get that back, you kind of got to go back to that old school of okay, this is X's and O's, and this is exactly what we're going to do. And so we just sat down as a group of coaches, and we needed a change, and we put it into practice. We spent a lot of time working on it behind the scenes, and we just had a great group of kids. And of course, having Eli, his success in returning state champ, but he had more fun this year, and he would tell you this, just with the team and with the kids, than he ever had. And he placed 4th, right, individually, but he still had the most fun because of everyone was in the room was clicking, right? Another thing I think that helped was, we have two rooms now, so we're able to separate our varsity from our JV, and that, I think that I've been wanting to do that for quite some time, even back when I was in Wisconsin. I'm like, man, we got to separate these guys because there's just too many different levels, and it doesn't matter if it's what the level is, but when you got returning state champ with this guy he's the first time putting on shoes, it's hard to keep the intensity up in a room. So that the training helped. because you can, we're able to talk to the kids a lot differently versus junior high or JV kids. You're trying to bring them along and get them ready for varsity. Well, the varsity guys, you're trying to get them ready for varsity matches. So that definitely helped. I think another thing that helped this year is I kind of passed the, I showed some technique and did a lot of the talking, but the bulk of it was Coach Luters and Coach Fa. So it allowed me to just go around and coach and be with the kids, which is what I like to do. I want to show them the technique and whatnot. Otherwise, if I'm the one doing all the talking, or the head coach will just say, not necessarily me, if they're the one doing all the talking and teaching all the time, they're not really walking around and actually helping the kids a lot. So I was able to interact with the kids a lot more that way, which was awesome. And I think we spent a lot of time on strategies, like actually teaching them the situations and practicing the situations. And I think that helped a lot with the success this year too. I really enjoyed that, because the kids they really got to know the situation that they're in. And what made us kind of go that route was last year, our heavyweight, the season before, Evan Kihlstrom. You remember Evan, big guy. He lost a close match to Manny, who makes a state from Davenport Central, and he lost in double overtime, and all he had to do was ride him out, and he kind of messed up and jumped to a cradle, a ride he didn't need to do at the time. And after that moment, where it's that's on us, because we didn't really teach him hey, this is how you ride a guy out for 30 seconds. Obviously, if you got a good ride, do your ride, but there's also tricks and strategies that you can do. And there was so many of those little situations where we lost matches that we worked on. And then this season, we won a lot of those matches because of the little things that we worked on. So it wasn't just about, conditioning and drilling a single leg over and over again. It was a lot of the stuff in wrestling that we tend to forget about, or this, it's easy to forget about, I should say, because it's I know what to do there, but the kids don't all the time. So that's what we worked on a lot, and just about being together more as a group, the family feel, and they were cheering and fighting for each other more than I've ever seen. So we just, like I said, just made some small changes, and hopefully we can just keep it going.
You could really see the difference too, Jake. From me being on the sidelines watching your team, there's just a certain niche that once you got that ball rolling, the guys are on the side, like you said, cheering for each other. They're having fun. They're relaxed. They're wrestling. They're not wrestling uptight, and it's not a job. It's a fun activity. They're out there and they're going after it, and they got each other's back. And like you said, once you made them small chips, now that you got that ball rolling,
yeah.
Boy, it's going to be fun.
Yeah. And I had to reflect on myself too. I don't know if you noticed it, maybe towards the end there, things got a little, districts, tournaments, things were a little bit more heated, a little bit more, it's on the line now, right? It's districts and stuff, but the entire season, I sat there with a notebook and just took notes and didn't even really say anything to the kids on the sideline, because that was the other thing is it took several years for me to realize that. But if I have to yell a half Nelson 30 times and they still don't know what to do in that situation, clearly that's what they got to work on. So I took a lot of individual notes this year, and we went back and spent a lot of individual time with kids. And it's just and that just made changes for some of those kids. You clearly still don't know what to do in this situation. So this is what you got to do. So all that situational coaching is what really helped, I think.
Yeah, you could see it. Like Jay said, I agree. So we all know Eli. Eli was a big leader for the last few years. He's we're all gonna. I'll say as a fan, I'm gonna miss watching him all the time here in the Quad Cities. But I know he'll have a good career. I'm hoping in the future as well. But who are the next guys? I know some names. I know Rusty Van Wetzinge's there. I know Caden McDermott. Hunter Meyer's back. What's this team looking like coming up for this upcoming season?
Yeah, we're going to be classified as young again. We had 5 freshmen in the lineup and a couple sophomores that didn't have varsity experience. And I think we're going to be – obviously, I think we're going to be better and more balanced. Like, so we're losing Eli. So in a dual meet situation, he's a guy that you go, well, he's going to pin, right? So there's 6 points. You're going through your score and you're strategizing and stuff. So that's what we did, this year. It's like, well, Eli's getting 6 here and, this person's getting this. I think we'll cover that more just with the experience. The kids will, obviously they're going to be better. I think a lot of our guys who didn't score maybe as big of points, maybe they just get a decision. I think you're going to see more bonus points out of those guys. So to kind of cover that void that we got to fill with Eli, you never know. It's always hard to explain, to say like, well, who's coming up that's going to make an impact. It's so hard to just name drop because you just don't know. Like I didn't think the kids that made an impact this year were going to make as big as impact as they did. I mean, have per se any heavy hitters coming in from like any AAU state champs or anything like that. But we got some good kids, some good lineage coming through that. Some old PV wrestlers, their families are starting to come through now. You got Duncan, right? So Royce Duncan's grandson's going to be coming through. And, I mean, he's going to be a tough kid just because their family gets it, right? It's a wrestling family. So I think we're going to be young. I think our older, like Ryan Cameron, I think Hunter Meyer, I think they're seasoned now. They're more experienced. I think they're going to be good leaders for our team. And, I just once we get back to working out and practicing, I think they're the bit just as much as I am. And I think we'll be more – I think we're going to be even more balanced is kind of where I'm thinking. We're not going to have that state champ maybe. I mean, maybe we will. I don't know. But I think we could – finally put more to state than just one. And I think we can score more points at a tournament now versus having one guy win it. And we started to see that towards the end of the season where it's like, hey, we got 4 guys in the finals now. Like that wasn't happening before. So I think we're going to see more of that where everyone's starting to place instead of just a few.
That's awesome.
So Jake, if you could ever go back in time, what advice would you give yourself, and at what age would you meet up with yourself again to give you that advice?
Oh boy, there's so many different situations on that one, right? I mean, I don't regret, the path that I have taken and in my life and everything that's happened kind of makes you who you are, right? So you don't want to change too much. But I probably would go back to my freshman year of college and tell me to go to class and keep my head on straight, because you never know what would have happened, right? Maybe I would have been successful at that level, maybe not. Hard to say, but I don't regret my time at La Crosse, and I don't regret it. I just don't regret anything about it. It was an amazing experience, and I absolutely loved it. But it would have been neat to see where I would have ended up with wrestling at sticking it out at Minnesota and being successful there. But that's, that's neither here nor now, though, right? Because you can't go back in time. So, but like I said, I don't regret it. It's just would have been neat to see.
Yeah. What is the best advice you can give right now to your wrestlers during this odd off season we've got going?
Oh, just, hey, stick with it. And my personal experience, I had to come from a small community up in northern Wisconsin. Like, you got to find, you can go on a run by yourself and you can train by yourself. There's things you can do and you can still work. Don't just sit around and do nothing all day long and wait for the coaches and wait for us to be able to do something with you. I mean, because we can't right now, right? So, and we couldn't. So just, there's things that you can do by yourself. Like I said, watch YouTube videos. Go do some shadow wrestling. Go work on some footwork. So stay active. That and that's all we can do right now. I mean, I can't tell them to go wrestle with somebody. I know if I was in their shoes and I wanted to be successful, I would have figured out a way to get on the mat with somebody. But we can't really. I guess we can't really say that right now. So, but if you want it, you find a way to get it bad enough, and then I heard I think it was Haggart was a good successful coach in Missouri, and he's a Division I official, and his philosophy or thing that stood out with my mind that I saw that in a coaches meeting one time was, teach the kids to be their own best coach, right? If they can do it without you, then it's just giving them a high five. They go on the mat and do their job, right? We're just there to mentor them and kind of bring them along, and that would be my advice.
That's great advice. All right, Jake, we've hit that moment where we're in OT, sudden death questions.
Oh, boy.
Some have a lot to do with wrestling. Some have nothing to do with it at all. So, favorite wrestling movie?
Oh, God. I don't even know. I'm not even going to say Vision Quest. I think that movie is awful. I kind of like the one, and it was One More Step. It's with John Smith is actually in it. I like that movie. It had I can't even think of all the actors in it now. Who was the guy that could crush apples with his hands? Old school wrestler.
Jack Roller.
Was it him? I can't remember. I think he was in it or whatever.
No, it's the Roller. Sorry, he's always it's Hodge. It's Dan Hodge.
Yeah, Dan Hodge. Yeah. Dan Hodge.
He's always at the roller tournaments at Tulsa. Yes, it's Hodge.
Yeah. Oh, man, I feel bad for getting that, but I like that movie. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I think it's called One More Step. It's a pretty good movie.
Okay. That's new to me, actually. I'm going to have to look it up.
Yeah.
Favorite superhero?
Oh, the Hulk. God, you got to love the Hulk. He just messes things up.
Favorite wrestling match?
Favorite wrestling match? Oh, boy. Probably I actually saw this match live. It would be Lincoln McRae and Chris Bono. I think it was 97. Hard, you can find highlights on it. I'm surprised you can't find that full video, but I love Lincoln McRae. Good God, was he goofy wrestler, but so tough.
Favorite food, and then where should we go eat now that restaurants are finally opening again?
I like a good old it's a tie probably between pizza and cheeseburger, like a good old cheeseburger. Where you could go eat right now, I would say go to Red Robin.
Good burgers. Yep.
Ruby, this is my second.
All right, greatest U.S. Olympic wrestler of all time.
Oh, God. These are supposed to be fast questions, too. Greatest Olympic wrestler of all time. You said U.S., right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'd have to go with John Smith.
It's a good one. It's a good answer. Kyle Snyder or Jaden Cox making the team next year?
Jaden Cox.
I think there'll be a better match for the Olympic team. I don't know. We'll see. Chocolate or vanilla?
Oh,
Ice
vanilla.
cream.
Vanilla. I can't stand chocolate.
You get a day off. Are you going fishing? Are you going golfing? Or would you go on a ride on a Harley?
Oh, I'll be riding the Harley. I love golf. I love all those things, but it's the Harley ride.
That was an easy question. I knew that answer.
Yeah, I didn't quit riding a motorcycle because of a deer. I still ride.
All right. This is a question we always end our podcast on, Jake. What is your favorite quote to live by?
Is it Brands' quote? You know, what is it? You
get
haven't said it
or something. You get what you earn.
Yeah, basically that. I mean, because for me, it was always, they said, did you really put in the time? Did you really work for it? Like, because everyone, we're kind of in a I deserve this type thing instead of did I earn this? It's kind of the society we live in now. Just throwing my opinion out there. Everyone thinks they're entitled and I deserve this. Well, I mean, maybe. I don't know, maybe. Or did you earn it? That's kind of where I'm at on it.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of entitlement in the world for sure. And I agree with you. Yeah. We shouldn't think we're entitled to anything. We need to put in the time and the work to get it.
Yeah, for sure.
And you don't see many, and I won't say all, but you don't see too many wrestlers with that mentality. They know the match is won when you're doing the work where no one's looking. It's not an entitlement. Not everyone gets to sit on the top of the podium. You got to earn that, and it's going to be through blood, sweat, and tears. So,
yeah.
All right, Jake. Well, thanks again for your time today, and good luck to the Spartans this coming season. We really appreciate you guys, everything you've done, and you meeting with us today.
Hey, thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for tuning in. Please share this podcast with your friends. Give us a like and a follow on Facebook and Twitter at QCA Wrestle. And keep an eye out for more QCA wrestling content coming soon.